And because we accept the Vedas and we accept the Upanishads, he said that we are better understood as Vaidikas or Vedantists. We have been given English education. We are dealing in a globalized world. So that is also a truth that modern Indians face. And on the other side, it is also true that we have an ancient civilization. Similarly, in schools, we have an awakened citizen program. We cannot afford religion is not for empty stomach. If we only were going inward and we lose sight of that materiality, then what will happen is that we will become small, shrunken as a nation. Anybody will come and conquer us.
Everything about Indian philosophy, Indian spirituality is fluid.
Yes.
It's not dogmatic like the
Yeah, that's correct. And that's why we have several ideals in India. We don't have one. Hanuman is an ideal. Rama is an ideal. You can take up whichever ideal appeals to you. The speciality of India is its emphasis on ideals rather than, we think we are focusing on idols. We are not focusing on idols. We are focusing on ideals.
Namaste. Welcome to Sangam Talks for another sit-down session podcast with Srinivas Venkatram. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking out your time.
Thank you for
to join.
having me.
So we will talk about today a topic which maybe we discussed in academic forums elaborately, but we will take a different path regarding the new citizenship that Venkataramanji tried to propagate through his efforts for 3 decades. An IITian from IIT, alumnus of Bombay IIT, Ahmedabad. He for 3 decades has worked to translate Swami Vivekananda's nation building philosophy into new models of thought and action. This work led to the founding of Illumine Knowledge Resources, which seeks to unlock the hidden power of organization, both government and profound establishments, foundations, schools, colleges. He received the Belur Math, Vivekananda University, Belur Math, recognized his efforts and he received honorary D.Litt in 2019 and also Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Culture, the Vivekananda Award. Sir, the main idea of this talk will be, if we boil down to the one fundamental thing, which is the way we should think about our citizenship. Now today's generation, they found like I am wearing a Western cloth and we found that it's a kind of fashion, and Indian society was never alienate any foreign culture for that matter. But we like to show a little bit these things, but there should be a balance. When we interact with people, we should have some courtesy. We should be thoughtful about what people are thinking, and that's the very basic thing about our Sanatan philosophy. And talking about Sanatan philosophy, the thought of Swami Vivekananda ji, which he had in 1897, his famous quotes, speeches on Chicago, and after that when he returned in India, he had done several speeches throughout India, lectures from Colombo to Almora. So from that line, he also inspired a lot of revolutionaries, and that became a deck of card, like it is chain reaction. So how you think that, and also I must talk about this book that that 3-decade-long effort put into in one point, The Awakening of Nations, this book. And in this book, you very nicely put those thoughts in a very readable way that we can use it in academic sector as well. It will be a very good read for academia. So, what is the relevance of this thought process of Swami Vivekananda today?
So, let me try to answer this question in 3 ways.
Correct.
First thing is that Swami Vivekananda pointed out that there is the very clear distinction between Shruti and Smriti. Shruti are our eternal ideas or eternal values of our civilization. And Smriti are the rituals, norms, forms, etc. So what he said was that the Smriti goes on changing from time and place. From one part of India to another part of India, it can change. Even from one century to another, it changes. So there is a Smriti dimension to our work, which is to our religion, which is there. And unfortunately or fortunately, many people get stuck only in the Smriti dimension, which is the rituals or the external forms of religion. Unknowingly. And on the other hand, what Swamiji said was that this is the Smriti, but go beneath to look at the Shruti. When you look at the Shruti, which is the eternal ideas or the core spiritual ideas and values of our civilization, they have been present here for more than 3,000, 5,000 years. They have developed. And this is the glue which is actually holding our civilization together. So our civilization is not calculated only in terms of the local rituals. Every village has its own Kula Devata, for example, or every group and communities they have, or villages have their Gram Devata. You have so many things. You have so many sects, so many different viewpoints, so many philosophies, which is all our strength because all this diversity is there. But beneath this diversity, there is that unity. And that unity are these eternal spiritual values. And so this is the first thing to be. And what Swami Vivekananda said was that in the modern world, what happens is that it is not enough, it is possible that people, because of the time and because of the circumstances, like as you pointed out, the clothes we wear, the context in which we are living, etc., it may happen that some of the rituals we are not able to follow. Some of the forms, some of the things that were followed by some of our forefathers, we cannot follow. But he says that, however, if you hold on to the essentials, if you hold on to the Shruti, then that is what will give strength to Indian civilization. And the Shruti values can include, for example, the divinity of all persons, that each person is divine. That is, for example, a Shruti value. Similarly, the fact that if all of us are divine, then there is a commonality among all of us. In a way, all of us are the same at the most fundamental level. That you and I, all of us are one. That oneness of things. All these things are our Shruti dimensions. The harmony which you allow for multiple pathways to come. This is all the Shruti dimension of our civilization. So this, I think, has got a tremendous relevance for the modern age. So I think Swami Vivekananda's contribution was that he was able to dive deep into Indian. You know that he traveled, that he was, first of all, he had a unique combination. On one side, he had realized the truth himself and he had realized the highest truths. And at the age of 19, he was supposed to have realized Nirvikalpa Samadhi and so on and so forth, which is our highest spiritual realization. On the other hand, he traveled as a Parivrajaka across India and went and saw the length and breadth of the country and understood how people were living. Plus, he studied scriptures with various people. So, he had a multidimensional understanding. And this multidimensional understanding is what he was able to say. Looking at that, then he said, no, this is the way forward for us.
Correct. And the aim is, make the Indians. It doesn't matter if you understand Smriti, Shruti by definition, maybe.
No, it is not important, but you must know that there are the essentials. And it is very important to hold on to the essentials. In fact, he goes in one other place, he says that as an Indian, you should have both qualities. On one side, you should be deeply rooted in our national ideals. So he talked about our national ideals like renunciation. Renunciation is our national ideal, that is Tyaga. And he talked about Seva, which is also our national ideal. Seva means not just compassion in a Western sense, but it also means service to another man as God. That you are God and I am serving you.
Not try to be unnecessarily being rude to people.
Rude and all that. So those are human values. So he says those human values are also important, but below the human values, there are also spiritual values. But you cannot have human values except by having spiritual values. In fact, he says at one point that if you have only human values, I am being polite to you. But if I don't have spiritual values, then when the time comes or the situation comes, I will let go of the human values. Then I will become like a tiger, he says. He says that I may have sheep's clothing, but I'll become like a tiger. But if your human values, what you say is the way we talk to others, the way we deal with others, if that is rooted in your spiritual values, then it will remain permanent. And then it will remain very strong.
Those values already maybe, imprinted in every citizen of
Yes,
Indian,
if you
belong to the
awaken,
Indian
yes, it is
civilization.
there, but you have to awaken it.
Yes,
And you
that's
have to,
maybe one of his greatest achievements.
That's correct.
And he put those ideas in very everyday words, mundane words throughout his enormous,
Correct.
numerous
That's
speeches.
correct. And he made it in a contemporary language, in a modern language, which allowed for people to understand it, especially the English-speaking Indians. You see, let us not forget that by the time when Swamiji came to the field, already Macaulay's education system was already on from
Devolution of Indian
1836.
culture.
From 1836 onwards, already, almost 50, 60 years had already passed of Macaulay. So already there was an English-speaking class which had got created.
I will come to that also, sir.
Yeah.
You referred Sanskrit, the importance of learning Sanskrit.
That's correct.
And we have to, revive
That's
the
correct.
learning of
Yes.
Sanskrit.
Because he said that Sanskrit brings, he says that Sanskrit is the language of prestige, it's the language of knowledge. And he says that by trying to do that, you will build in that sense. It is also the carrier of our culture. So he says that the greatest problem was that when Sanskrit was pushed out from the mainstream, the central communication channel through which our cultural ideas could be easily translated or transmitted were lost. Like you take the word dharma. Now dharma doesn't have an English translation even today. Or the word shraddha, it doesn't have an English translation today.
Correct.
So many deep aspects of our civilization have been lost because we are trying to translate it from Sanskrit to English.
So, picking on that terminology, religion, you used that word profoundly in this book.
Correct.
So, the popular narrative around the use of this term is like often we express it as all religions are same. But maybe from the point of view, if we understand profoundly the essence of Sanatan Dharma, maybe the concept of dharma and the term dharma is not translatable to the word religion. But you distinctly use it for terms like Vedantic religion or religion of the Upanishad. So that give it a different
Cut. Yes, that's right. So what Swami Vivekananda was saying was that he said that you might have religion is all the practices that we follow. But he said that at the heart of our practices, at the heart of almost all the major sects, etc. in India, their roots, if you go deep, in fact, he said there is not one ideal in India, fully developed ideal in India, which you cannot trace back to the Upanishads. So in what Swami Vivekananda brought back into the light is that the essence of our civilization is encoded in the Upanishads, which is a series of direct realizations of truth by the Rishis and by the seers of old. And he says that those direct realizations is actually the spiritual truths, which is the essence of our civilization. So when he talked about religion, he says that one is the religious practices, which are, as I pointed out earlier, the Smriti. But he says inside that Shruti is linked to the Upanishads and is linked to the deep ideas of the Upanishads which are there. And each of the Upanishads, for example, and now there are about 108 which people talk about, but there were several more. And some of them are really major ones which are there. But in all of these Upanishads, they carry these deep spiritual realizations. And that is what he calls as real religion. which is deep. In fact, in another place, he says, religion in India is not just practice but realization. You have
Yes,
to realize
we are
the truth.
seekers,
We are
not
seekers of,
followers.
yeah, we are seekers of truth, and when we seek truth, we become. We have to transform ourselves. So it is not only about practice of a religion. It is not about doing things 4 times a day or 3 times a day or doing it in one way. It is what you become as a person. So if you go back to your earlier argument, if I have to think about our religion like that, even the way we deal with people, we should realize the truth. That this person has a spark of divinity or a spark of something, of something transhuman which is much higher, and I have to respect him and deal with that person in that way. So once I realize the truth, I will always behave in the correct way.
Correct.
So realization is the foundation of our religion, and not just knowing things or following rituals or practicing also.
So it's been seen in current generation that we are used to social media, and there are many such reels coming out that the foreign travelers who came to India, they're realizing that how accommodating Indians are. And talking about, I referred our religion or dharma as Sanatan. You referred one term which Swami Vivekananda ji referred to us as Vedantics.
So
Upanishads are also
is part of that.
Vedantas.
Yes, exactly. Vedanta.
Vedanta.
So the Vedanta means the essence of the Vedas is the Vedanta. And so Veda ka Ant is Vedanta. And this Vedanta or the Upanishads which are there, these Upanishads represent the mass of truths which these Rishis saw through their own meditations, through their own realization. They were realized truths by the Rishis, and therefore they represent truths, and they are not by one person. They are not one book made by one person, and it is not as if there was one prophet. These are all, many of them are unknown also. Some of them are known, but these many Rishis who together worked on it. So these people together did it. Now what Swami Vivekananda was saying was that the word Hinduism, he said that it comes from the idea that people who lived on this side of the Sindhu river. So it came from our location, geographic location. But he says, but if you really think about it, all Hindus are tied together because we accept the Vedas. And we accept the Upanishads, and because we accept the Vedas and we accept the Upanishads, he said that we are better understood as Vaidikas or Vedantists, rather than only as Hindus, because Hindu represents a geography, while Vaidika represent those who believe in the Vedas, or who draw their origins from the Vedas, or Vedantists, which are the core ideas which we practice and follow in our religion today.
So we practice knowingly or unknowingly this process of that elaborately being written in Vedantas, Upanishads.
To some extent, but it is very important that he said that to a great extent it was also forgotten.
Yes.
That was one of his...
But we are not realizing our potential.
Yes.
What you are working on, the action we must take.
Correct.
So in current generation, what is the relevance today? That's the basic question. So what was Swami Vivekanandaji's expectation for our generation?
So what he expected was that, first of all, he expected that if we were able to go back to the core truths of our religion, even of our civilization, he says then that will allow us to do a very important thing which Indians want to do, which is to handle modernity on one side and handle our civilization.
You mentioned one thing, Rishi ideals.
Yes, I will come to that. But if you first look at this, his whole point was that we have been given English education. We are dealing in a globalized world. So that is also a truth that modern Indians face. And on the other side, it is also true that we have an ancient civilization. We are proud of that civilization, and we want the values of that civilization to continue. So his expectation was that how does this East and West tie up in us in a meaningful sort of way? And it can only tie up when our roots are in the fundamentals of our religion. He says if you get tied up in some particular mythology, in one particular, not that mythology is bad, but if you get tied up into one thing which is there, into some mythology, some practice, some rituals, then somebody will come and say, I don't agree with the ritual. So it breaks up. Then there is no unity also. There is a sense that, oh, yours is different, mine is different. And that's what happened in India.
Yes.
1,000 years we broke up into so many sects, so many divisions.
We have been colonized for a long period.
Why were we colonized? Because we were not united. Otherwise, why would just a small group of people come and control us?
But there was continuous resistance.
Yes, of course.
Against the colonizers.
Naturally, because because don't forget that as a civilization, it is not as if everybody was like that. There were so many people who had realized high truths. So they know, so they were rooted in the truth. We have had a phenomenal history of spiritual renaissance at every level. In fact, he makes that statement. He says that if I take simply a view of India through power or money, then you may see that we lost power or we lost money, etc. But if you take the view of India, the history of India in spiritual terms, he says we have been endlessly creative. Even in what were called the Middle Ages, etc., when you're looking at it, or in the Middle Ages, I mean, you know, the 16th century, 15th century, whatever are the medieval periods in India, or even if you look earlier, he says that there has been a continuous flow of spiritual giants coming in every part of the country.
Exactly.
And they have come and given such wonderful ideas and wonderful new interpretations.
That's a great blessing, maybe, from the universe itself.
Absolutely.
That's we maintained our values.
Yes, and
still even after.
Yes, and because of these people, that's why he said on a spiritual plane, India has been undying.
Yes.
And India has been ever living, ever vibrant. And even at the heart of the British time, at that time also you found people like Sri Ramakrishna coming, and also many saints who came in different parts of India, and it continued. And they brought in new ideas into spirituality, but always rooted in the fundamental ideas of our civilization, always rooted in the divinity of man, always rooted in these fundamental, axioms which the Upanishads and others have given.
So you like to, implement these thoughts into action through institution that you created. Would you like to elaborate how you are implementing this?
Absolutely. So let us take, for example, 2-3 examples. So we have collaborated with Capacity Building Commission in Government of India, and we worked with them on many of the Karma Yogi interventions. Okay. So in these Karma Yogi interventions, there was a program where nearly almost 2 million government servants have gone through the Karma Yogi program. Some of them 2 days, some 3 days, 1 day, different types of programs for different departments, include customs, railways, various people. And what did we what we did was we connected it to to the ideal of a Karma Yogi. That ideal of Karma Yogi comes, as you know, from the Bhagavad Gita. And how do you apply this ideal into our day-to-day life? And how does this translate into better service to citizens? How does it translate into better collaboration? How does it translate into looking at our role, developing seva bhav, and being able to serve in the right way? And how do you handle the conflict with, in many conflict situations, what we call flashpoints, how do you reduce it? So these kinds of things, they come up. Now, what is the power of it is that these are fundamental Indian ideas. So because they're Indian ideas, they resonate with our soul of our people. If you give Western ideas, they will listen to it intellectually. But because these are in our civilization, when they connect with these civilizational ideas, immediately they are able to own it up and own it. So the effectiveness of such models are very, very deep and very instantaneous, because they connect to our 3,000 year history, if I may say so. And that is the
maybe
power. Maybe 5,000 years also. Yes, exactly. 5,000 years. That kind of connect. Similarly, in schools, we have an Awakened Citizen program. When you talk about Awakened Citizen program, how
future citizens,
which is future, but how we start with what? We start with the idea that you have infinite possibilities within you as a child. Now, when you say infinite possible, where does it come from, that idea? It comes from the idea of the Atman. That inside you is divinity. Only if there is divinity. If you are a body, A biological body, would you have infinite possibilities? No. It is because you have that spark of divinity inside you, that when you manifest it, infinite possibilities come out of it. So again, these are Vedantic Indian ideas, which if you give to the children, they are able to relate to it, they are able to connect to it. And when they connect to it, then it transforms their thinking. So this is how ideas of our civilization have to be taken to the root and given to all our people. Similarly for college students, how, if you take Seva Bhav, how do you translate Seva Bhav? These ideas have to be.
So you referred like the aim of Swami Vivekananda's evolution, involution, and there must be some balance to it in order to make our nation, bring out the full potential of our nation and
Correct.
the citizens of our nation.
Correct.
Would you like to?
So,
and maybe the Rishi ideal.
Also, let me first talk about the Rishi ideal, and then I will talk. So Swami Vivekananda made a very important statement where he said that, he says that our ideal, we should try to follow the Rishi ideal in India. Now, who are the Rishis? Now, the Rishis, the first of the point was that they were seers of truth. So he says religion has to be direct perception of truth. And he says that these Rishis were seekers of truth. So he says that as Indians, we have to go back to being seekers of truth. We have to directly see the truth. We have to be original. We have to be, because we were an original civilization. We are not an imitative civilization. Now, in the last 200 years, 100 years particularly, 150 years, we've become imitative. We have tried to imitate the West. But he says, no, you go back to being original yourself, create new knowledge.
Like the balance between materialism and spirituality.
That is a separate point that he brought about. One is the Rishi ideal. So he says each of us should become a Rishi. Our scientists should be Rishis. Our businessmen should be Rishis, because even Janaka was a Raja Rishi.
Yes.
So he says you can be a king and you can still be a Rishi. So he says your business people, your academics, all of you should try to be Rishis. Try to be original, see the truth, seek truth. Then he says, then the country will become original. Then Viksit Bharat will come to us. So that is one point that he made. And the second point that he made were related to, as you said, this balance between spirituality and materiality. So what he pointed out was, and that's a very powerful contribution that Swami Vivekananda made. He says that earlier the thinking was either you have to be spiritual or you have to be material. If you are material, you cannot be spiritual. Or then you just go to temple and pray to God and all that. Or you are very spiritual, then you leave the world and sit away. So Swami Vivekananda said, no, in modern world, you have to be on one side deeply spiritual inside. And you have to learn to be detached from the world from inside, which is the Gita ideal. And he says that he brought that back. And he says that at the same time, you have to be someone who has to work ceaselessly, try to do the works in front of you in a wonderful way. Whether you are a teacher, whether you are a businessman, whether you are a cobbler, anybody you are. And then you serve in that spirit. And secondly, he says, if you serve with self-confidence, if you know, I am the spirit, I am the Atman.
Self-awareness.
Then self-awareness is there. Then you will work with confidence. And then you will try to find truth yourself, and you will try to do original things yourself. You will be bold. Look at people like some of the people like Elon Musk, they are coming out with bold ideas. So he says you want thousands of people, but you want bold ideas along with spirituality. Not without spirituality.
With balance.
With balance of inner spirituality and outer material success. So he says only then our country will flourish again. Only then our country, because he says we cannot afford to, religion is not for empty stomach. If we only were going inward and we lose sight of that materiality, then what will happen is that we will become small, shrunken as a nation. Anybody will come and conquer us. We cannot allow that. So he says on outside you have to also have material success, but you must also have spiritual growth inside.
And I think if I'm not very wrong, we can see these ideologies, these values in those people who matters for our country.
In some of them, yes.
In some of them, right?
Yes, yes.
And that is, the blessings.
That's correct. And the more people follow that, even in corporates, even in government, in community service, everywhere, the more this country will benefit.
So we were talking about soul, spirituality. So I like to take a segue for that. thing that you have mentioned profoundly in this book, that is the Vedantic thought process of three types. Adi Shankaracharyaji's Advaitavad, Ramanujanji's Dvaitavad, and maybe Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which who bring out the Dvaita Advaita Vedaved philosophy. Could you please,
Yeah, so
want to
actually Swami
elaborate on that?
Vivekananda's main point was, he says that these two things he was trying to say. First thing that he says is that there are many different viewpoints in Indian religion. And these are also seen as potentially different viewpoints, first point. But he says that first of all, we have to understand that many of these viewpoints are harmonized. If you study the Upanishads, that is the first point he made. If you study the Upanishads, these apparently contradictory doctrines get harmonized. And that harmonization is very important. And specifically about Dvaita, Visishtadvaita and Advaita, he says that these are actually harmonized. They represent different, they only represent different states of the same reality. And therefore, he did not see them as separate sects which need to fight with each other. He says, you can be Dvaita, he can be Visishtadvaita, he can be... But all of us in that sense find our roots in Upanishadic ideas, in Vedantic ideas, and all of us are harmonized because the core truths are the same. There may be a difference in our assuming that, whether the soul is going to be always one with God, or is the soul contracting, or is the soul due to, impurity, and then through purity it expands. Or whether the Atman, which is the individual soul, and the Paramatman are one. He said these are specific questions which you can analyze and interpret. But he says at the core we have to understand that these all are harmonized. And they have not to be seen as points of disunity. They should be seen as points of harmonization and unity.
As mentioned by his guru,
By Sri Ramakrishna
Ramakrishna ji,
himself, who also saw everything as harmonized.
There are many paths,
But all of them are harmonized. Yato mat tato pat.
Jatomat.
Jato pat,
Right.
yato pat.
So, can I ask that how the concept of religion then, it's different from the Western point of view, how they see religion?
So, Swami Vivekananda specifically points out that he says that, he says that there is the body and there is the mind. So, he says for the Westerners, they treat the mind, the subtle body, as the soul. But he says in India, we have three layers. They have two layers in that sense. He says mind and body. But he says in India, there are three layers. There is the body, there is the mind, and then there is the Sukshma, which is the Atman. And he says that is also in its full-blown form, is one with the, because it is infinite and pure. And he says that is there in everybody. So that is a uniquely Indian idea. That beneath that mind also. So there he makes a clear distinction that the Western religions have two layers, while in India they talk about one more dimension to the whole thing, which is the Atman layer. And so he says that is a uniquely Indian idea, that each soul is potentially divine, and that the goal of life is to manifest that divinity within. He says that's a uniquely Indian idea, and that should be the source of our national regeneration.
Correct.
Because if each person knows that he or she is divine, and they know that the goal of life is to manifest, like I gave the example of school, anybody, then you will see that you have tremendous self-confidence, tremendous self-esteem, and you are also able to manifest your full potential as a human being.
It's kind of, we are very comfortable to, indulge into this idea.
Absolutely.
Unlike the Western view.
Because it is coming in our national thought stream. It's almost in our national bloodstream. So it is very
like
easy
in our
for
DNA.
Exactly. And because of that, it is very easily we can resonate with it. So he says, and that he makes that point very, very important. He says India should always go in the line of its natural instinct, and its natural instinct is the spirituality. So he says, if you want to grow, you should take spiritual ideas, and then you will have sustainable growth. If you try to graft another culture's ideas onto you, he says it will remain on the surface. They will be unmixed. But if you take from our own source, from within, inside out, then that will be sustainable, and that will be something which will be integrated, and that would be very powerful.
Well, in language which we understand, because we've been taught by the Western civilizations, the missionarism that brought forward from the West. Are we thinking? I mean to say that did Swami Vivekananda ji thinking about any missionary, being missionary for the Sanatan?
I think he said 2-3 things. The first thing which he says that in most religions, religion has traveled along with has traveled along with, as he says, the blast of trumpets and of war. So in a way, it has gone along with colonization, gone along with these, with the use of physical force. Along with that, these ideas have been spread. But he says that in India, for example, our ideas have spread not only today, but he says thousands of years ago also these ideas have gone across the globe. But when it has gone in a soft way, gentle as a dew. And it has fallen and kind of nourished the land around it. So our spreading of ideas has always been non-invasive. It has been ideas which we have offered to the world, and the world has taken it, absorbed it, assimilated it, and made it. And to the extent that they have not given us credit for it also.
No, it's like a natural organic process.
Organic process, exactly. So he says that therefore, that is the first thing he says. The second statement that he makes is that at this particular point in time, he says that the world needs these very important Indian ideas, these ideas of the Atman, he says, especially with the onslaught of science. He says Vedanta is one of the most scientific of all ways of looking at things. And he says that these ideas, the time has come for us to communicate these ideas. So he doesn't say try to convert people or try to be, in that sense, try to use force or convert people. He says offer these ideas across the globe. Make it available, because so far thousands of years the ideas were not even available. They were kept in the forest. They were kept in in books which were lost over centuries. He says so much of our scriptures have been lost.
Yes.
And so he says that we need to revive them, bring them out of the forest, bring them out of these, put it in a modern language, make it available to the rest of the world. And he says if you do that, then the whole world will benefit. Not only India, but the rest of the world will benefit, because they will be able to reconcile science and religion. They will be able to reconcile and understand how human beings have to be treated. They will understand the new respect for human beings. A new spiritual society can be created using this.
And we must retain that sense of respect for our ancestors as well.
Absolutely.
Throughout the colonization period, the effort they had shown to keep that knowledge base intact.
Correct. You see, it's two things. One is that a lot of our, like for example, the Upanishads and this itself, so many have been lost. What is left is a fraction of that. If you take totally only a fraction, and the fraction took place due to many reasons. Some of them were given to families. That's what Swamiji says. That because they were given to families, and those families over time, they were not able to hold on to it. The economic conditions, then due to invaders coming in, them leaving their house, there were so many mishaps that took place.
And they being interpolated differently.
Right. And he says because of all that, so much has been lost in many ways over the centuries. He says that despite that, we have clung on to it. And he says our forefathers have held on to it. He says now is the time for this generation to take it up and to spread it and to make it available to the entire world. He also makes a statement that the Upanishads particularly, he says that they have retained their original form, and therefore they have remained surprisingly untouched. And that's also a very important statement that Swami Vivekananda makes. That our core, like Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, says they have remained original in their original form right from the beginning. And that's a great blessing for this country.
So can we talk about now that for the revival of Indian citizenship and the idea of nationhood, are there any tangible reforms you can offer? I mean, you thought of, or in spiritual reforms also.
Yeah.
We already discussed elaborately on the spiritual reforms.
Correct.
How can we materialize it?
No, so which is exactly the point, that we have to do it through First of all, there are three things. The first thing is that these ideas themselves will have to be spread. That, as we recognize, has to be done. Which is that these core ideas of divinity of man, this idea of seva, these idea of tyaga and seva, these national ideals. So one needs to be able to do all these things. So this is one aspect of the whole thing. But Swami Vivekananda had a specific strategy for doing this. And his specific strategy was, he called it practical Vedanta. And he says that this Vedanta has to be made into practical. He says, I want every fisherman, every cobbler, every person at various walks of life, a judge, a lawyer, everybody to get these Vedantic ideas, and they have to again find themselves and find their inner strength and start working for collective good. So this practical Vedanta was Swami Vivekananda's unique contribution. And one of the unique dimensions of practical Vedanta, which he talks about, which, for example, the Ramakrishna mission, for example, uses, is the idea of Shivagyane Jive Seva. That means I have to serve others, thinking of them as God or thinking of them as Shiva. So this idea, when you do, then what you said earlier, you can have interhuman dealings will be good. You'll be able to deal with respect, with love, with ownness, with people. You'll be able to serve people. You'll be able to contribute. You'll be able to make a difference. But you're doing it in a spirit of worship, and you're doing it in a spirit of seva. And when you do it like that, not only it is like how Shakespeare said, twice blessed. It blesseth him who gives and gets, and him who gives. Both.
Understand that also.
Yes, we have to understand that. So this, for example, is an idea. Similarly, he said our national ideals are tyaga and seva, renunciation and service. So he said you have to intensify it, intensify her in this channel. So this tyaga seva ideal has to be taught in every college, every school, everywhere. When it is taught, then only we will realize how. When he says tyaga, it doesn't mean that give up everything. But when he says tyaga means learn to give up the comforts and look towards nation building, look towards the idea of our responsibilities to our collective good. If our best and brightest simply want to go abroad or just want to try to, just get maximum rewards for their own little work, then who's to rebuild a nation?
Correct.
So if our nation has to be rebuilt, then the people from our IITs, from our top schools, from our top, our PhDs, our best people from all over the various universities, they have to also take up this idea. Right. Our executives, they have to think about this idea. Everyone has to see it as a collective responsibility. And they have to give a little bit of comfort and take up this idea of service. And they have to intensify us in these ideals, national ideals. This is the...
looking at the bright side, Indian diaspora being the most successful diaspora in the world.
Exactly.
And we are making it global.
Exactly.
Through that process as well.
Exactly. And this is also very interesting. He makes a very great statement at one place. He says you can get ideas from all over the world, but always be rooted in our national ideals. He says, if your roots are not strong in your national ideals, then all global ideas will only confuse you.
Right.
So that is one more key message which he gives. He says, be rooted in your national ideals, and then after that, open your heart and mind to the whole world. And you also get ideas from everywhere. So learn from the best in the world. Be international. But first of all, be deeply national. Be deeply rooted. Yes. That is your first thing.
It's not wrong to wear Western clothing or go to any Westernized restaurant every now and then.
It is not. All those are, as you said.
But that doesn't make you any different than maybe if you want to, show yourself in.
Yeah, but that is as he said, that is all Smriti. But what is the Shruti? Do you see yourself as divine? Do you see the others as divine? Do you see the oneness of all people? Do you value your national ideals? Do you understand that even Rama, Krishna are great ideals? Rama was a wonderful ideal, which that ideal continues to hold in many ways. You may or may not agree with the mythology. Did he exist, not exist, you can fight. But you cannot disagree with the fact that it's an ideal which has shaped Indian civilization.
So everything about Indian philosophy, Indian spirituality is fluid.
Yeah.
It's not dogmatic like the
Yeah,
Western
that's
sense.
correct. And that's why we have several ideals in India. We don't have one. Hanuman is an ideal. Rama is an ideal. You can take up whichever ideal appeals to you. And that ideal you can take up and try to live by that ideal. But the main thing is the speciality of India is its emphasis on ideals rather than, we think we are focusing on idols. We are not focusing on idols. We are focusing on ideals.
Right.
And
And you must agree that no society is perfect,
Yes.
not even Indian societies, but we have to maintain that balance.
Yes,
We have to
absolutely.
understand that thought process
Yes.
that
And we
we
have to be-
already have in
Yes, and we have to be rooted in our nation. Not just balance. We should go one step further and be rooted in India. And then after that, you can be balance it out. If you are not rooted, then you will become imbalanced after some time. So that sustainability comes only through our depth in our national ideals.
and we are sustaining.
And then we are sustained.
That's our blessing.
That's our blessing.
So I will end with that question.
Yeah.
So we talk about today's decolonization of the mind. Does Swami Vivekananda give away forward on this? I mean, we discussed on it. What ideal reforms do you?
In this sense,
You referred one thing, the reintroduction of Sanskrit learning in our academic institutions, and many such things.
Okay. So let
elaborate
me
on that.
break this question up into two parts. One part is related to where specifically with respect to Sanskrit, etc. He says that the idea behind it is that even today the maximum prestige is to English. So he says that it is English ideas and English books and English ideas which flow to our intelligentsia. So you take even someone like me who's English educated. In a sense, I was cut off from the vast amount of national literature. You know, even my regional literatures. I was cut off simply because I did not have access to the language. And the Sanskritic literature, for example, was our national language in that sense. And so if you want to rebuild, connect into those things, then definitely getting some amount of appreciation of these kinds of things will help us reconnect with our vast heritage, which otherwise is cut off. The term to be used is there is no cognitive access. There may be physical access also now. First, we didn't have physical access. But assuming that you have many people who are doing wonderful work like Gita Press and others, they are trying to take it and bring it into and give physical access to our scriptures. And many other people are doing this. But even after you have physical access, how do you get cognitive access? How do you get mental access to it? You cannot get mental access except through the language. So language is our gateway. So we need that language. We need to rebuild that language so that we are able to get access to that. That is the logic behind it. It is not some other, it is a very practical logic why we need it. That is one part of the story. The second part of the story is when he says decolonization, he also meant it in another way. He did not use this term, but he says that you have to have what I call a cognitive strengthening. We need to strengthen. He says if you diagnose very deep, what did we lose because of all these invasions? What did we lose there? We lost our self-esteem. We lost our Atma Shraddha.
Correct.
We lost our faith in
We
ourselves.
become negligent.
No, not only negligent, we lost faith. We said that Westerner, what he says is more correct about us than India. Even today, many Indians believe that what the Westerner believes about India, even our history is seen through Western eyes. Even our culture is seen through Western eyes. So,
And we see ourselves different than our fellow citizens.
yes, exactly. Because we see through through the eyes of the outsider. So the point that he made is that unless we rebuild self-esteem, we rebuild our cognitive strength, that means our mental strength, our mental capacities. He says that that is the heart of the whole thing. That you have to build our mental capacities of our people. And by rebuilding that, our thinking capacity, our capacity to understand our capacity to digest wonderful Upanishadic ideas. So this mental capacity, if we build in modern Indians, millions of people come out of our university system. 5-7 million graduate. I do not know what is the large number of engineers alone who come out, besides all other graduations which come out. He said all these people are coming out. Now we have to strengthen them at a mental level, at a cognitive level. So this cognitive strengthening or cognitive empowerment is one of the primary reforms or the way forward for our country.
And when maybe the reform will only happen when they realized that cognitive power.
Yes.
And
And therefore we have to systematically develop it. It is not they how will they realize it unless we put in that systematic power. So it is not only about one is rewriting the history books or say what that's all one part of the whole thing. The other part will give them thinking skills, give them capacities, give them mental capacities, give them capacity to digest these ideas, give them the capacity to expand themselves, to give them Indian ideas and build capacities in our people. And that cognitive capacities when you build, and that is actually at the heart of the reform that is needed today. At every stage, different reform is needed. You see, 100 years ago, we needed physical freedom. At that time, our major reform was that we needed physical freedom. So we needed to the freedom fighters, we needed to find, without freedom, how will we work? Today, the mental freedom. And that mental freedom will come only we become mentally strong, that means cognitively strong. Mentally strong means faith in our thinking, faith in our own processes of thought, not being imitative, and to develop our own originality, to develop our own models of, models for everything, which are uniquely Indian models, rooted in Indian civilization. No, that is the task ahead of us. That is today's task. Tomorrow the task may vary. After we've done all this, maybe spiritual freedom will be our next step. But today, mental freedom and which is in a way decolonization put in a different way. And mental freedom and mental strength and mental capacities has to be built.
And Swami Vivekananda, as I started that podcast with, that his ideologies that influenced a large number of revolutionaries and it became a chain reaction.
Exactly.
So he kind of prophesies that after this much time we will get independence.
That's good.
And after that much time we will get the cognitive independence, the mental independence.
Exactly. And that is the job we are doing now. Today's battle for India is cognitive independence.
And after that, maybe the spiritual independence
will come next.
When the world is ready for it.
When the world is ready, but we are also ready for it.
We are ready for it. So, with that note, sir, last one simple question: are you think that we are satisfied enough that maybe it's a long way we have to go still, but are we going on the right path? What do you think?
I think that the situation has definitely changed in the last decade and in the last 10-15 years. You see, in our own work, we find that through our work, we have reached almost 5 million people. Through our programs, through our various schools, colleges, etc. But 5 million, nothing in our country. We need 50 million, we need 100 million people. And not only us, there are others also working. So one is the cultural renaissance taking place, but the cognitive renaissance which has to take place, the cognitive independence, that I think there is a tremendous amount of attention which has to be put at the highest levels to make that change happen.
So with that good note, I think, thank you, sir.
Thank you
for the discussion.
And thank you for having me here. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.